Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Our focus today, we are going to dive into the cell, literally. Okay, well, I guess technically not literally, but figuratively. And we're going to look at a variety of different organelles. Now, these are small little organs that are found inside of a cell that allow it to perform a variety of cell processes that are essential for you to be considered living. So let's just go ahead and literally, or figuratively, dive on in. So hopefully by the end of this video, you should be able to understand that cells have a complex internal structure. You should be able to describe the function of a variety of organelles inside of the cell and differentiate between which types of cells have which organelles. As you can see, we have a ton of different organelles that we are going to look at, and these are going to need to be committed to memory. So we'll spend quite a bit of time on this in class to help you understand exactly how all of these organelles work and how they function inside of the cells. So the term organelle literally means little organ. They're small specialized structures that are found inside of most cells. And as you can see on the picture on the right, there are lots of these different structures. Now, most of these are membrane bound, which means that they have kind of like an outer layer to them. It's kind of like a wrapping on a package that allows some stuff in, some stuff out. We'll talk more about membranes a little bit later on, but keep in mind that there are a ton of different little organelles that are found inside of each individual cell inside of your body. So let's talk about some of the individual organelles. The first one is known as the cytoskeleton. Now that word cytoskeleton, the root cyto means cell, and skeleton means, well, skeleton. It's the network of proteins that provide the structural support for the cell, very similar to how your skeleton provides support for your body. Now, in the cell, for example, they are proteins, whereas in the human body, they're bones. But those proteins provide structure and support that allows the cell to be able to have its three-dimensional shape. Let's continue on and talk about the nucleus. The nucleus is the central part of the cell, and it stores DNA, which is the genetic information that determines what we are, what proteins we make, etc. Now, inside of the nucleus, there is something that's called the nucleolus or nucleolus, and that makes ribosomes for the cell, and ribosomes make proteins. So we'll probably dive into ribosomes a little bit more later on in the video, but the nucleus is in the center, which stores the DNA. You can even see the chromosomes that are inside of the nucleus. And the nucleolus, or the nucleolus, found inside the nucleus, makes ribosomes that are essential for making proteins. And if you remember from our last unit, proteins are absolutely essential for cells to be able to function. Some other organelles that are present inside of the cell include rough endoplasmic reticulum. Now, rough endoplasmic reticulum makes and modifies proteins. So if you look, what makes it rough is the fact that it has proteins on it. So it looks like it's the term studded with those proteins. It kind of looks like it would be, it's studded with those ribosomes. So it looks like it would be rough. Smooth endoplasmic reticulum has a similar purpose, but it makes and modifies lipids. So those lipids can be used for storage of energy. Those lipids can be used to make components of the cell membrane. You'll see what we mean here in just a minute. But rough and smooth are based on the fact that rough has ribosomes, and smooth does not have ribosomes. Now, ribosomes themselves synthesize proteins from genetic information. So DNA, the code that's in the DNA will actually leave the nucleus and go to the ribosomes that are either found freely floating inside of the cell or found on the rough endoplasmic reticulum. That material then is run through the ribosome and read in order to make the proteins that are essential for life. So ribosomes are very important inside of the cell because they synthesize protein from genetic information. Now, if you look, most of the time you'll see ribosomes as just kind of like a little dot or a circle that's found inside of the cell. But ribosomes are actually made up of two subunits that come together when the instructions to make the protein get to the area where the ribosome is located. A few other organelles include the Golgi apparatus, which is involved in the transportation of proteins throughout the cell and to other cells. So the Golgi forms little vesicles, and these vesicles are kind of like shipping containers, and they can fuse with the cell membrane and push material out of the cell, or they form from the cell membrane and bring materials into the cell, into the Golgi, to be shipped to other areas in the cell. The vesicles themselves, like I said, are like the shipping containers. They're the small sacks that transport those materials. So the Golgi apparatus you can think of as one of the big transport centers inside of the cell that allow materials to be shipped from one place to another. The mitochondria, you probably remember this as the powerhouse of the cell. Well, we're going to go into a little bit more detail here because they make energy for the cell in the form of what's called ATP, which stands for adenosine triphosphate, but this energy currency of the cell is ATP. Okay, and what you'll notice is that inside of the mitochondria, it almost looks like a maze. And that's important because the structure, ATP, the energy that's made inside of the mitochondria, is actually made on the exterior part of the maze. So the more twists and bends and folds that are inside of the mitochondria, the more ATP that can be generated from the cell. And the more ATP that's generated, the more energy that that particular cell has to be able to function. A few other organelles include vacuole. The vacuole is just a storage of materials. Both plant and animal cells have these, but the plant cell has a rather large water vacuole that stores, well, water. The lysosome, that term lyse, like Lysol, means to break down. So lysosomes contain enzymes that break down old cell parts. It's kind of like a recycling center. So parts that don't function well anymore can go into the lysosome and be broken down into components that can be used to rebuild other parts of the cell. And centrioles, we'll talk more about those later on, but what you need to know right now is that they aid in cell division. That is, the centrioles play a very important role when we want to go from one cell and be able to make a copy of that so that we have two cells rather than just one. Now when we get to the outer part of the cell, we have the cell membrane, and that is the exterior part of the cell that is flexible, and it's selectively permeable, which means it determines what is allowed in and out of the cell. So the cell membrane is a protective barrier, and what's nice is that it keeps the bad stuff out of the cell, but takes good stuff in and also allows things to be shipped out of the cell if necessary. So it's kind of like a bodyguard, if you will. It allows things in that should go in and gets rid of things that should not be there. The cell wall is an exterior boundary that's found in plant and bacteria cells. It's outside of the cell membrane. And it provides some structure, it provides some support. It also provides a protective layer as well around bacteria and plant cells. So keep in mind that cell membranes can be found in plant and animal cells as well as bacteria, but the cell wall is not found in animal cells. Chloroplasts are a very important part of plant cells. And they perform photosynthesis. If you know and remember, photosynthesis is how plants obtain energy by utilizing sunlight to be able to convert that into sugars that can be used to form ATP inside of the plant cell. So chloroplasts play a very important role as they absorb the light that is required to perform photosynthesis. So keep in mind, something that's important is to be able to understand the differences between bacteria, plant, and animal cells, and that includes what organelles are found inside of these cells. So I found this little handy chart here that really helps. Now, we know that animals and plant cells are eukaryotes and bacteria are not. They are prokaryotes. Now all three have a cell membrane. Only animal and plant cells have a nuclear membrane, which is just the fancy term for nucleus. Bacteria cells do not. Animal cells have no cell wall, while plant cells and bacterial cells do. All three have ribosomes and all three have DNA, but the DNA in animal and plant cells are found in chromosomes, where in bacteria it's just found as a ring inside of the cytoplasm. All three have a cytoskeleton. Animal cells have vacuoles, plant cells have big vacuoles, and bacteria have no vacuoles. Bacteria have no lysosomes, have no centrioles, and no chloroplasts. While animal cells have lysosomes, centrioles, and no chloroplasts, and plant cells have lysosomes and chloroplasts but no centrioles. So I know this is a lot to take in at once, but the real key things are on the left here. Bacteria has no nucleus, a cell wall, and very few organelles. Plants have a nucleus, a cell wall, a chloroplast, and a large water vacuole. And animal cells have a nucleus, no cell wall, and no chloroplast. So again, we'll practice with some of these concepts because, like I said, there's a lot of information that's here for you to be able to differentiate between. So hopefully you understand by the end of this video that cells offer a very, very complex internal structure, and that all organelles have various and specific functions that are necessary for life. Plant cells, bacterial cells, and animal cells each have different internal structures that allow them to function differently, but also allows them to serve the organism in which those cells are in. So just kind of keep that in mind, that all of these things play a very important role in life. Hopefully you have a really good understanding of the objectives of this video. We will go and attack some cell membrane material next time. Hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye.